Hello everyone and welcome to another episode on Checkpoint. Thank you so much for the videos that you help us to share. Thank you so much for your comments, your questions, and because of you, because of all you do for us here at Checkpoint, the message is going further and it's going faster, and for that we are truly grateful. Please do well to also share this video on all your social media platforms and make sure that somebody somewhere is getting blessed just by watching this video. Thank you for all you do, and today we're going to be starting on a fresh topic that is different and very insightful. Welcome to Checkpoint. Alright, so today on Checkpoint, I would like to teach from my book, How to Attract the One You Want. How to Attract the One You Want. It's a book I wrote sometime in 2009. As old as the book looks, it is still ever relevant. So today I want to share on a particular topic that says how to know who you will marry. How to know who you marry. So we'll be anchoring it around the compatibility check. So you'll be seeing a lot of compatibility talks in this particular teaching. Alright, so when we talk about compatibility, what do we really mean? And in case you're wondering, if you get this book, compatibility check is just one chapter in the book. Chapter 10 of this particular book is compatibility check. Understand your partner, know the compatibility check so that you'll be able to know who you will marry. Alright, before we talk about compatibility check, I like to mention something that is very, very agonizing, because I noticed that in this generation there are a lot of problems, a lot of misunderstandings, a lot of wrong reasons why people got married in the first place. And then when we consider the recent lockdown and stuff like that, we see that it is very difficult for couples to cohabit in one house. And you begin to ask why. Are you not husband and wife from the very beginning? Are you not a couple who have been married from the very beginning? And then why is it difficult for you to just live in one house and live peaceably? With the 2 weeks and 3 weeks and almost a month lockdown, you see people fighting and almost trying to kill themselves because they were not compatible in the first place, and because of that they did not know who they were supposed to marry. Today I'm going to help you if you're not yet married, so that you'll be able to know who you will marry, because it is not everybody that you can get married to. See, everybody should marry, but it's not everybody you should get married to. Can you say it with me? Everybody should be married, but it is not everybody I should marry. If you say that with me, you see very clearly that it will help you to understand what I'm trying to teach today. Everybody should marry. I'm not saying those who are not compatible shouldn't get married. No, I'm saying that they can marry, but they must not marry you. They can marry, but you must not be the one to marry them. A lot of people have married out of compassion. A lot of people have gotten ahead to marry people they should not marry in the first place. I'll be helping you today so that you are able to know how to know who you will marry. Are you ready for me? Let's shoot. Alright, let's talk about compatibility first before we delve into the aspect of knowing who you marry, because compatibility helps you to know who you marry. If you look into the word compatibility, what does it really mean? Compatibility in the general sense simply means the state of being compatible in which two or more things are able to exist or work together in combination without problem or conflict. That is compatibility in the normal sense. It also means the ability of two or more items or components of equipment or materials to exist or function in the same environment without mutual interference. Now, how does this concern marriage? Listen very well. Compatibility in marriage simply means the state of being compatible as a couple. What do I mean by that? It is a state in which a husband and a wife are able to exist or work together as a team without problems or conflict. I am not saying that problems won't come, but problems that come and end up dividing you is a real problem. Conflicts that come and then end up making both of you cat and dog, making both of you unable to exist together as a team, that problem is already above the level of just normal problems. So compatibility in marriage is very, very essential. Let me share with you another definition of compatibility. Compatibility in marriage means the ability of a husband and a wife to exist or function in the same system, in the same environment, in the same marriage without mutual or external interferences. So it means that your ability as a husband, your ability as a wife to exist together, to function together, to fulfill life's purpose together, to fulfill the vision of your marriage together without interferences, without problems and conflicts that end up dividing you. See, it is important that you plan for your marriage. That is why I am teaching on how to know who you will marry. Because if you don't plan well, you won't live well. Hallelujah. So it's important that you plan well. And one of the essential ways to plan is that you must know who you will marry. Check out for compatibility. Make up your mind to look well. Because a lot of people fall into love and they say, I am falling in love. But I beg you, before you get married, do not fall in love. Step into love. When you are stepping in consciously. When you are stepping, you are not making mistakes. You watch where you are putting your legs in. Alright? A wise man once said, look before you leap. So it's important that you look well before you leap into marriage. Look well before you fall into love. Hallelujah. So it's important that you don't make that mistake. That you are conscious, that you consciously step into the platform, the world, the system called marriage. That it's not something that just happened to you. Some people say, I fell in love at first sight. Please, as you're falling in love at first sight, be sure that you check out for compatibility. Because many who are falling in love at first sight have eventually divorced at eventual sight. So it's important that you do it well. So let's take a look at what compatibility is all about. In chapter 10 of this book, I'll be looking at the topic that says conduct a compatibility check. In the book, How to Attract the One You Want. It's not enough for you to say, I want to attract the one I want into my life. Please conduct a compatibility check. That way you are able to know, is this person right for me? See, everybody may be right, but find out that one that is right for you. Find out that one that is good for you. Even in church, a lot of people say, oh, because he's a Christian brother, oh, because she's a Christian sister, I can go ahead and marry. See, being a believer is one of the prerequisites. Close that door, it's very tight. Close it tight, so it's too single, please. Okay. So being a believer is one of the prerequisites for actually getting married to somebody. But please, it is not every believer you can marry. Should I say it again? Someone will be wondering, why would a pastor be saying that? Yes, it is not every believer you should marry. You should marry a believer. I agree with that. But it is not every believer you should marry, because that person might love God. And in all honesty, this person is not compatible with you. And as a result of that, there is bound to be a problem. There is bound to be conflict. And don't tell me, oh, there is no marriage without conflict, or there is no marriage without problems. But there are marriages that with the level of conflict and problems I'm talking about, they dissipate. Those families eventually end up breaking up and then leaving behind a trail of wounded children, psychologically disturbed children, because both of you were not able to do what is right. So let's talk about how to the compatibility types that are very, very necessary for you to do. Because let me read from the book. You are not permitted to attract just anyone. The truth about attracting the right one involves an understanding of your compatibility and that of the person you want to attract. So you want to marry, okay? You are willing to marry. But now, beyond you just getting married, you must find out, in what ways are we able to exist together? Are we able to function together in the marriage? Because somebody said, oh, we have to be alike to get married. No, you don't necessarily have to be alike to get married. The truth of the matter is that you can marry somebody who is different from you, but in your difference, let there be agreement. In your difference, let there be some level of what? Agreement. And that's what we talk about compatibility. You are supposed to marry somebody who is meant to complete you, who is meant to fill up your excesses, whose strength is your weakness and whose weakness is your strength. That is what we talk about. That's what we mean when we talk about compatibility. The person does not necessarily have to look like you or say yes or no to, or say a consistent yes to everything you have to say. So it's important that we conduct a compatibility check so that we'll be able to know who we are supposed to marry. Alright, number one compatibility I'd like us to talk about is the compatibility called biological compatibility. Biological compatibility. In biological compatibility, it's essential that we find out the blood group, the genotype, and the health status of the person we want to marry. Let's talk about the genotype first. The genotype, there are different types of genotypes. So, assuming your genotype is already SS, because of that, you know automatically you cannot afford to even look for somebody who is an AS. You have to look for somebody who is already an AA, so that you end up having children who are just carriers, and be sure that this person actually has a genotype that is compatible with yours. So, if you are an AA, you know that you are free to marry just about anybody, whether the person has an AS as a genotype or whether the person has the SS genotype. So these are the few basic information you need to know about the genotypes. Now, what it means is that if you end up marrying wrongly, or maybe you have an AS genotype and you end up marrying some other person who also has an AS genotype, what's going to happen is that there is a probability that 25% of your children is certainly going to have the SS genotype, and because of that they become sickle cell anemic patients, and this will last almost for a lifetime. Many people say, oh, I'm in love, I love this person so much, oh, we are so much in love, we understand each other, we are meant for each other, you know, both of us we are born with the same month, we share the same birthdays. Oh, this must not be a coincidence. You know, I'm David and she's Davida. Then it means that we are bound to marry. Please, because you are feeling so much love now and feeling so much butterflies in your stomach. But by the time you give birth to children who are sickle cell anemic, what's going to happen is that every single love and butterflies in your stomach that you felt was going to last for a lifetime will just disappear into thin air by the time the reality of having a child with genotype issues surfaces. You will use every money you're supposed to live on and thrive on and do your vision and live your purpose and execute your passion. You use all of that for hospital bills, you use all of that for drugs, you use all of that for emergencies. Let's not talk about the psychological heartache that is involved in having children who have such issues. So at the end of the day, you are not at peace, and with the pressures and with all that is happening, it won't be long. Both of you start calling each other names and hating each other and think that one is the problem of what is happening in the family. And with that, a lot of problem comes up, a lot of conflict, and sometimes these problems may become irreconcilable because you did not plan well in the first place. So genotype is so essential. If you're an AA, you can marry anyone, just about anyone. If you're an AS, please, you cannot marry anyone. Just insist on marrying somebody who has already an AA genotype. And if you are SS, please make sure that you marry somebody who is AA, so that at least you know that whatever sickle anemic condition that you have is ending with you. All right. And then let's talk about the blood group. All right. When we talk about the blood group, a lot of people say there are not much problems concerning the blood group genotype, but there are, because we have seen there's what we call the rhesus factor when we talk about the blood group. The rhesus factor sometimes can be positive or negative. So when you see a blood group that reads something like A plus simply means A blood group with rhesus factor positive. All right. So when we see AB negative, what we see there is an AB blood group with a negative rhesus factor. So it's important that you marry somebody who is compatible with your rhesus factor. If you don't do that, sometimes when you get married, there will be several miscarriages. And then you begin to call your village people. You begin to contact your aunt in the village that is so old. You begin to contact your uncle that has refused to retire, and the rest of that. And then you begin to develop enmity, anger, bitterness over people who did nothing, absolutely nothing to you. You might even begin to suspect a gift that was given to you at your wedding. And you say, oh, that's the cause of the miscarriage. But that's not the cause. It's a medical issue, it's a biological issue, because both of you got married and your blood groups, the rhesus factor of your blood groups are not compatible. But in matters like this, there is a way now. Medicine scientists have been able to discover what to do, and there's a particular injection that will be given to you. So I don't have much information on that. You can ask a medical practitioner or your personal physician, and they will direct you on how to go about that. So but there's a medication that can take care of that. But it's important that you know, because if you don't know in the first place, like I said, you begin to blame all your village people, but they're not the reason why you are going through that. And that one is the health status. See, a lot of people appear okay physically, but when you check them very well, they have a lot of diseases inside of them. They might look fresh, they might look trendy, they might look nice, but they are medically unwell. Some of them have diseases that are transferable, STDs and venereal diseases, and lots of other diseases that are not even STDs. A disease like hepatitis B and the rest of that are easily transmittable might just be in them, and they may look physically okay. That is why you need to be sure that you figure out what the health status of the person you are about to get married is. And that's why we recommend and we insist that there must be a medical test before the couples get involved in marriage counseling to avoid problems that touch the heart. Praise the Lord. Alright, so with that we are done on the biological compatibility. Alright, remember from the book, it says that if we ignore any of these things, what will happen is that the flavor and the sweetness that you're thinking that exists in your relationship will just turn sour, because there will be perpetual payments of hospital bills and buying of drugs, including the heartbreak of losing a beloved child after so many turmoils and efforts. So that is why you have to be careful concerning the biological compatibility. Quickly, let's talk about the spiritual compatibility. Are you ready? When we talk about spiritual compatibility, what do we mean? We mean the ability of a couple, a husband and wife, to exist and function together with their spirituality. It is important that you get married to somebody who have similar and common spiritual beliefs with you, similar spiritual attitudes of worship, and similar objects of worship. There are people I know who cannot pray if there is not a jar of holy water, a jar of anointing oil, and possibly even some beads. It's important that you marry somebody who both of you agree together on objects of worship, on patterns of worship, on ability, on how they engage their spirituality. Let's read from the book. It says, as a born-again child of God, if you get unequally yoked with an unbeliever in the name of trying to change him or her, you are sure to go through some rough times and heartbreaks, because light and darkness cannot agree. Now, this is even talking about two people who are not even born again. Maybe one is born again, the other one is not born again. The Bible tells us that we should not be unequally yoked with unbelievers. Unequal means that there is no common ground. Unequal means that both of you do not have the same references. Both of you do not have the same person you look up to. Both of you do not have the same object of worship. And it is so important that you understand this. Now, you may even both be Christians, but the way you worship is still not the same, like the one I was talking about earlier. If you know that you believe that you just kneel down, lift up your hands, and you begin to talk to God, and you believe God hears you, there is somebody else who, before she prays, she must get anointing oil, she must get a jar of water and bless it and sprinkle it around. She must spray incense and burn incense all over the room before she can pray. And both of you are supposedly Christian. Now, how do you live life together? Do you know that because the person who is the object of your anger, object of your frustration, is in your house, it means that as you wake up in the morning to pray, both of you are praying differently. There's already conflict in the air. As you get to bed at night to pray before you sleep, both of you pray differently and in different ways. There is already conflict in the air. It won't be long until that marriage gets scattered. It won't be long until the marriage dissipates, because the right things were not done. So it's important that we understand that even though we are both Christians, there is need for us to have agreement, especially as it relates to what spiritual doctrines. You may get married to somebody who says that wearing of earring is evil, is satanic, it's against the will of God. Now, this tells you that since this person is not agreeing with me on this matter, it's going to be a perpetual problem. You cannot really have to change who you are in order to just please somebody. You understand? So you have to take your stand. It's either you make up your mind at that moment not to wear earrings for the rest of your life and be happy about it. You cannot afford to say, oh, I'm not happy about this, but because it's marriage, I'm going to walk into marriage blind. People always say that love is blind. But I always advise before you marry, I beg you, your love should not be blind. I am serious about it. Before you marry, your love should not be blind. Your love should have 24 eyes, seeing everything that you cannot deal with, seeing the things you can deal with for the rest of your life, and then separating them from the ones you cannot deal with for the rest of your life, so that you don't end up being bitter. You don't end up being frustrated. A lot of people go into marriage and they have a lot of red flags glaring at them, but they won't do anything about it. They'll just ignore them and expect that when they get married, things will automatically change. It doesn't change. That is why you have to be very conscious before you get into marriage. Alright? An example can be seen when you believe that Jesus is the only object of worship and your partner believes that other things like candles and some clothes are major objects of worship. Be sure then that this marriage is speedily heading for the rocks. So it's important that you are careful that both you and your partner who is about to get married, you have similar beliefs when it comes to things concerning spirituality. You have similar doctrines concerning and similar spiritual values. All right. Let's talk about another kind of compatibility called the physical compatibility. Well, a lot of people say, well, as long as God is leading us, it doesn't matter whether he's tall, it doesn't matter whether she's fair, it doesn't matter whether he's good looking, it doesn't matter whether she has no curves and all of that. See, listen to me. It's important that you get married to somebody that you love to look at. I say it again, it's important to get married to somebody you love to look at. Because physical compatibility is essential. Don't get married to somebody that when you wake up in the morning, the first thing you see gets you angry. The last thing you see before you go to bed gets you angry. You see, that marriage will not last. There will be a lot of issues, there will be a lot of problems because you don't like what you see. If you like tall guys, please don't go and marry or manage short guys. I beg you. If you like fair ladies, please don't go and manage a dark lady. Because the long and short of it is this. A time will come in that marriage when a lot of waters will have crossed the bridge. And at that moment, if you have always liked dark ladies and you married a fair one, your eye will just start keep gallivanting up and down and looking for all the dark ladies in church. When you come to church, a dark lady, a dark skinned usher welcomes you. Everything that pastor preached that day, you just zoom up from your head because your mind is just on the things you wish you would have had. So it's important that we look out for what? Physical compatibility. Marry someone you would love to look at. And I beg you, in this modern day of makeup and makeover, find a way to see the man you want to marry in their natural habitat without all the makeups and all the, because I heard that guys are now wearing, there's a particular material clothes that they use to achieve 7-pack on their body. Let's not talk about the women and all the makeovers and all the layers of pancake and powders and eye pencils and artificial eyelashes and the lip glosses and the lipsticks in this modern day. So much so that when you see a particular person you used to know, you see the person all made up, you won't even recognize who that person is anymore because the person is now not only made up, but the person has experienced what we call a makeover. So it's important, if you like, you can meet under the rain, for all I care, you can meet wherever, but no matter what happens, make sure that you're able to see this person without makeup, this person without being, I didn't say you should go to their house or see them naked or anything like that, but just find out creative ways in order to make sure, you can even do an exercise. Let's do an exercise, wash your face with water. Buy sachet water and both of you just wash your face for the fun of it, and then but you in your heart, you know what you want to achieve. Oh, don't look at me like that, and then don't comment anything that would make me laugh at you somehow. But it is essential that you know who you are going to marry. A particular man in India had to sue both his wife and his family and the wife's family because he said that the wife was the reason why the children are very ugly, that he didn't know that the wife was that ugly when he married her because he saw her all made up, and then eventually after they married, he discovered that his wife was really, really ugly, and because of that, he has hated her ever since. Don't be like that man. And don't ask me his name. Alright, let's continue. So we're talking about physical compatibility. And let's read what the book says. How to Attract the One You Want by Ifeoma Eze. It says, this can be practically seen in some marriages where some men are ashamed of their wives and vice versa. Some men are ashamed of their wives, some wives are ashamed of their husbands because they do not check out the physical compatibility before they marry. So in such cases, you see them, they prefer to go their separate ways once they get out of their home, but they cannot hold hands together, they cannot walk together on the road because they are ashamed of each other. So it's important that you get married to somebody you love to look at. Very, very important. In such a situation, you can be sure that since there is no physical attraction, there will equally be no sensual attraction in such a marriage. This will eventually lead to deadness in marriage and ultimately divorce. So it's important, very important, that you marry somebody you love to look at. At this point, before you are married, I guess your eyes are still open. So please don't attract or be attracted to any partner that you will not be proud of tomorrow. Many of us know about some husband and wife, maybe they are walking to church and then one is in front, the other one is behind. I am wondering, why can't they go together? Because they don't like to see each other together. So it's important we check out for physical compatibility so that you don't get married and then when you're watching a movie, you are dying for all the guys in the movie and dying for all the girls in the movie, having daydreams and bad dreams and wet dreams, all because you do not marry somebody you were supposed to marry. Alright, let's talk about another compatibility called the cultural compatibility. If you have been with me so far, you should be able to attest that we've talked about different kinds of compatibilities already. We've talked about the biological compatibility. We've talked about the spiritual compatibility. We have talked about the physical compatibility. Now it's time to talk about the cultural compatibility. You see, it's important that you discover the culture of the person you want to marry. Remember, our topic is still how to know who you will marry. It's important that as you are getting to know who you will marry, maybe you met in town, maybe you met in the city, maybe you met in abroad, whatever place you met, maybe you met online, whatever place you met does not really matter. What matters is that you do your work, you do your due diligence by getting to know who you will want to marry so that you'll be sure that this is the person you really want to marry. There will be cultural restrictions and there will be cultural regulations that you must have to do in order to get married to this person or in order to live with this person. And because you do not believe in such cultural regulations and cultural restrictions, you end up having a lot of problems in that marriage, in the relationship, because you did not check out for cultural compatibilities. There are some traditions that before you get married to a particular person, they will have to bath the person naked, and then you end up drinking the water that has been brought out, that has been used in bathing the person naked. That is one type. There's another type, I won't want to mention the particular state, but I heard that one is still currently ongoing, where you have to, a man who just got married will have to use his wife and give as cola to either his uncles or his father and the male figures in their home after they are married. And when I mean by cola, it simply means that they will have to give their wives to these father figures in their family to sleep with and guarantee that this is actually a wife material for them. And you see how barbaric and how terrible that kind of culture is. So it's important that you understand what the culture of the person you love is. Because truth of the matter that all of us have origins where we are coming from. No matter how flashy and fancy and modern each person might look, every one of us come from somewhere. And sometimes these cultures are bound on us if we do not have strong will. And in that kind of case, the culture, because we do not have the strong will, the culture they insist on us carrying out some of these barbaric and anti-Christian practices. Anti-Christian practices. Alright. The differences in culture can even lead to pain, heartbreak, and at most death. I'm reading from the book How to Attract the One You Want. I know of a place here in Nigeria where men offer their wives as cola to male visitors. This, they say, is part of their culture. If you're ignorant of this fact and then go ahead to get married to a man like that, without settling down to discover the cultural compatibility between yours and his culture, then you are bound to face certain unimaginable mishaps because you do not know. And see, this is why it is very, very important that you conduct a compatibility check so that you can have a harmonious marriage. Marriage is work. Anyone who tells you that marriage works automatically, the person is lying to you. Marriage is like an empty house. The furniture you bring into it is the furniture you enjoy. What you bring into it is what you enjoy. In marriage, TV does not appear in that house. You have to bring TV into that house for you to enjoy it. You have to bring a bed into that house for you to sleep on it. If not, you have an empty house. And as uncomfortable as an empty house is, that is how your marriage will become so uncomfortable, because marriage is what you make of it. Can I say it again? Yeah. Marriage is what you make of it. Marriage, a good marriage, a beautiful marriage does not just fall down from heaven. You have to make it work. That is why I always tell people, a good marriage is not wished, a good marriage is worked out. Can you join me to say it one more time? A good marriage is not wished, a good marriage is worked out. You have to consciously, intentionally work it out and make it blissful. Alright, let's talk about number 5, the ideological compatibility. Ideological compatibility. When we talk of ideological compatibility, what do we really mean? Listen to this from this book. Every individual has a different perspective, mindset, and value about life. The worst thing that can happen to anyone is to marry someone who has a different perspective, mindset, and value for life. When you have vision and you marry someone without vision, there is bound to be division and destruction because you do not have ideological compatibility. Let me give an example. Assuming that you are a wife whose only ambition is to, maybe you want to be an international personality, you want to go to different countries, be involved in policy changes across the continent, you want to make dreams come true, you want to attend a lot of high-class meetings, be a part of the UN Women influence policies for countries at that level. And this is your vision, this is your dream, this is where you want to go to. And then you eventually get married to a man whose only ambition is to be the chief of his village. You see, automatically there's going to be a lot of problem in that marriage, because as a chief in the village, people come to his house to eat, and he needs his wife to be available to cook the food. And you cannot do your international stuff. Why be the wife to a chief in the village? Because a chief in the village has an office, and his office is situated in the village. No chief in the village has an office in USA. It doesn't work like that. So it's important that you understand that there is a place for what? Ideological compatibility. Let's take it the other way around. Assuming you are a man and you want to be a diplomat, and all you want to do is to move from country to country. You even want to be a part of your country, but you want to represent your country, maybe become an ambassador for your country in other countries, and help them understand that your culture, your country is good, that they have a lot of good products, like you want to help rebrand the face of your country and the perceptions of your country as it relates to other countries. So you see, you have a lot of work to do. It will involve a lot of traveling out, and then what if the only thing the wife you want to get married to wants to do is just to sit back at home and invite visitors and just cook food and the rest of that? You see, your vision is not in alignment. Your ideologies are very, very different. There is need for you to get married to somebody who thinks in the same line with you. The person must not think exactly what you are thinking, but this person must be able to step up and at least think in line with what you are thinking. Let me assume, let's put it in this perspective. Maybe you're a medical doctor, and then you got married to somebody who is a nurse. You see, somehow there is some level of alignment. I'm not talking about just alignment in career. I'm also talking about alignment in when it comes to the thoughts of your heart. You must not be in the same career to be able to think together. So So it's important that you ask this person questions so that you'll be able to know where is his mind, where is her mind, what is she thinking. I asked a lady many years ago, I asked her, so what is your vision? What is the vision for your life? At that point, I was not even married. So it's important for you to understand that you cannot change the mind of a person. You see, mentality affects stability. The mental attitude of a person determines what the person will believe in and how compatible it will be to relate with such a person. Like the girl whose story I just told you, I couldn't help her because her mind couldn't come up to what I was trying to explain. She already had a belief, the ideology was already set, and because of that, it couldn't change. So it's important for us to know that before we get married to somebody, before we figure out who we are supposed to marry, it is very, very important for you to know that both the perspective, the mindset, and the value that the person has for life is compatible. We need to know if it's compatible with the ones that we already have. So this is very, very important. And then finally, on the types of compatibility that we need to check and conduct before we know who will marry, I want to share with you the last one but not the least, the temperamental compatibility. The temperamental compatibility. You see, we have different temperaments. We have been created differently. We have been made differently. And each one of us have a different kind of temperament. According to Tim Laye and his wife, they were able to write a book that is titled Why You Act the Way You Do. Why You Act the Way You Do. And then we're able to find out that there are about 4 different kinds of temperaments. We have the choleric, we have the sanguine, we have the melancholy, and we have the phlegmatic. And these 4 temperaments differ in their nature. Alright? For the sanguine, they're usually animated, playful, sociable, convincing, high-spirited. They can promote anything. They are spontaneous. They are very optimistic, funny, very delightful, and cheerful. They are talkatives per se. When we talk about the cholerics are more adventurous. They are persuasive. They are strong-willed and very, very competitive. You know, they are self-reliant, positive, very, very outspoken. They are daring, and they are very, very independent. They are decisive, they are movers, they are tenacious, and they are the ones who are usually leaders in every organization. Let's talk about the melancholies. The melancholies are very analytical. Before they take one step, they calculate it. That's why they hardly make much mistakes, because they are very analytical. They check if this way they are taking is going to cause problems for them, and they take a retrace before they even step out in the first place. Can we comfortably say that melancholies are not good with taking risks? But they're very respectful, sensitive, they are planners, they are very scheduled, and they're very orderly. They are faithful people, very, very cultured, they are deep, and sometimes they're musically inclined and very creative. Alright? They are very, very, very thoughtful. Now let's talk about the phlegmatics. The phlegmatics are the ones who are always adaptable, they are people oriented, very self-sacrificing. They want to make sure that they're not offending anybody. They are very shy. They're very friendly. And talk about diplomacy, they have a natural gift for diplomacy, because they want to settle everything without creating conflict. They are inoffensive, okay? But they are very consistent, and they are very good mediators. They are tolerant and very, very good listeners. They are reserved, they are easily satisfied, they are patient, and they are very, very submissive and peaceful. And these are the few characteristics of these 4 different temperaments. I understand that with time we have blends of these temperaments. It's important for you to understand which one you are, and that way you'll be able to understand who is complementary to you, who is compatible with you. So please don't be a hothead and then go and marry another hothead, because at the end of the day, what happens is that because this one is highly flammable and the other one is highly flammable, with any kind of internal or external match that comes close to that family, kaboom! What we see there is an explosion. What we see there is an explosion that is beyond control. And at such times you begin to see that the marriage cannot stand, because they have what? Irreconcilable differences. So don't be a very short-tempered person and go and marry another short-tempered kind of person. It is commonly said that 2 captains cannot be in one boat. So if you're a very strong choleric, you cannot afford to marry another strong choleric. If not, there will always be competition, and this competition sometimes may not be healthy. So it's important that you find out what your temperament is, and you're able to know who to marry, because the secret of your marriage would depend, the secret of success of your marriage will depend largely on how or your understanding of your temperament, the temperamental compatibility. And there are people, maybe you are an unforgiving person. That is one weakness of the melancholy. Then you go ahead and marry another person who is unforgiving. So as you are keeping a diary of everything that she has done to you, he is also keeping a diary of everything that she has done to him. So it's important that we understand that temperaments do not really match. So we have to look for somebody whose weakness is our strength, and somebody whose strength is our weakness. All right, let me take it again. Somebody whose strength is our weakness, and somebody whose weakness is our strength. If you focus on that when you want to marry, I'm sure you will make a lot of mistakes when it comes to knowing who you will marry, because the temperaments, to a large extent, determine who we are. Let me take from the book. It said you need to discover if the temperament of your partner is compatible to yours. For example, if you are a very withdrawn introvert and you can't afford to marry a very extreme extrovert. Imagine a very extreme introvert getting married to a very extreme extrovert. What will happen in that marriage most likely is that the introvert will be complaining about the extrovert. Oh, you go out too much, you are too wild, you are too always out. And then the extreme extrovert will be complaining about the introvert. Oh, you are always inside, you are always hidden. Is this how you want life to be? So at the end of the day, there will be problems because they are not temperamentally compatible. So it's very important that you work on your temperament, you find out what the temperament is, and marry someone who complements you. Alright, so basically we've been able to look at six different kinds of compatibility. We've talked about the biological compatibility today. We've talked about the spiritual compatibility. We've talked about the physical compatibility. We've also talked about the cultural compatibility. We've talked about the ideological compatibility. And finally, we talked about the temperamental compatibility. And somebody out there will be asking, how do we find out most of this compatibility? I will tell you. One of the easiest ways to find out the compatibilities, apart from observation, physical observation, is asking questions. An Igbo adage said that we have an Igbo adage that says that the one who asks questions never misses his way. The one who asks questions never gets lost. So it's important for us to understand that if we want to know and find out what compatibilities, what kind of compatibilities we share with the person that we intend to marry, it's important for us to ask questions so that we're able to know when the answers are given. And there are different ways through which you get the answers, especially when somebody is answering a question. It's not just about the question that is being answered, it's also about the body language, it's also about the tone of voice. It's also about the body language. It's also about the tone of voice. These are the things that you have to look out for when you are receiving an answer from somebody. So in this book, How to Attract the One You Want, we'll be looking at chapter 9. In chapter 9, it's titled Know Your Partner to Be, and there we have several questions that you have to ask the person that you intend to marry. Let me read from the book. It said, in route to attracting the type of man or woman you want, you will come across different kinds of people. This means that you need to employ a method through which you'll be able to discover if this person is qualified to be your marriage partner for life or not. Now, a good method which you can use to get to know much about this person is by asking questions. And it says in this book, these questions should not be asked all in one day. You should ask them little by little over a period of time. So don't make the person you are dating look like the person is under some form of interrogation. Alright? Don't try to make the person that you are dating to look like the person is under some form of interrogation. Like maybe you say, oh, thank God I watched this video. Then you pick up this book. Oh, I've gotten my book too. I've gotten my own copy. Then you carry the book and then you go out on a date. Maybe you guys went to eat out or to drink out or to hang out. And then as you're doing that, you say, oh, I got this book, and in this book, they have all the questions I need to ask you before we get married. So number one, you ask the person. Number two, you ask the person. That person will begin to think you are freaky or very weird. So it's important, very important that you internalize these questions, and you don't have to ask all of them in a day. Just maybe pick 5 questions per date and gradually ask them at different times, some over the phone, some over physical meetings, some over writing a letter or a text or something like that. And by the time the person begins to answer this question, together with the body language, together with the tone of voice, together with the use of words, you'll be able to find out for real who this person is, and if this person is really compatible to you, and if this person is the kind of person you will want to marry. It is my expectation and my belief that by the time you are done watching this video, you can comfortably know who you should marry and who you should not marry. So that if these things are taken care of on time, a lot of marriage issues, a lot of divorces, a lot of separations will not take place, because people know what is right for them to do in a marriage relationship. Alright, let's take a look at one of the questions. Let's take, for example, how do you get along with each of your parents? Assuming he asks a question that simple, and then the guy you ask the question just picks up and says, I hate my mother. My mother is very evil. That woman, she's wicked. See, she's not deserving to be a mother. By the time you see such venting, such animosity, such bitterness and reaction, then you know that something is happening, because you have to find out what caused this kind level of animosity, what caused this level of resentment and anger and bitterness. Because if you don't find out very soon, it won't be just my mother is evil and wicked. It will soon be my wife, you, is evil and wicked. Because, and then at such point you begin to say, oh, all women are the same. My mother was like that and my wife is not like that. All women are the same. So you see people generalizing simply because they did not take caution. So find out, what did your mother do? Find out for yourself, because if that person is talking like that, it is possible that you'll be next in line for an accusation or for a tagging of some kind of wickedness. So find out what exactly happened, so that you don't fall into that same trap. Imagine maybe a woman is now saying, oh, and you ask a lady, how is your dad, how did you get along, like the first question, how did you get along with your parents? And she said, oh, my father is evil, my father is wicked, he does not deserve to be a father. Please find out, because it won't be long. She will now begin to say, oh, all men are the same. My father was like that, and now my husband is like that, because you do not ask the questions you were supposed to ask. So please do make sure that you do make due diligence in asking this question, so that you don't get lost, you don't make mistakes. They are very important. Like you could ask someone, what were your hurts and disappointments as a child? Some people have been raped when they were small, some were molested when they were small, and because of that, they carry so much of those garbage. And then when they begin to relate eventually in marriage, it spoils things, because there's already a preconceived idea of what hurts and disappointments look like. And so, imagine I had a story, I once met somebody who had been molested as a child, and because of that, she had a lot of difficulty relating with her husband in marriage, because she was raped by several other men when she was much younger, and these men were relatives, people she confided in, people she trusted, and because of that, it was difficult for her to relate with her husband even in marriage, and it affected their marriage a lot, because these were hurts and disappointments that were bottled in and then nurtured until they became huge mountains of pain and disruption in their relationship. So it's important to ask very important questions like that. Alright, you could ask someone, what's your perception, especially when a younger sister offends? How do you deal with him? How do you deal with your younger brother when he offends? The kind of answer they will give you an idea. Maybe he says, oh, I beat my younger brother mercilessly. Oh, I whip my younger sister with cane until she begins to bleed. That is a signal. That tells you that you are next in line for such kind of beating. Because if there could be somebody they are bloodly related like that, then it won't be long. It will be your own portion. So be very careful about the person you are about to marry. Ask pertinent questions. Because when you ask questions, you get answers. Alright? Then there are other questions like, what were your childhood fears? Do those fears exist today? There are people who cannot stay in one house alone. There are people who cannot stay in one room alone. There are people who, if you lock the door against them, they begin to freak out, because they are claustrophobic. They can't stay in one place. They can't stay in one place locked up for any given time. And then you see, these are childhood fears that eventually grew up with them and they matured with it, and because of that, it's affecting their own real life of today. So it's very important that you find out from people what they think and everything. Assuming you maybe before marriage you ask somebody, are we going to have what if you don't if the children don't come early, if you don't have children at the early stages of our marriage, what are we going to do? What do you think? And the person says, God forbid, no, it's not going to happen. In fact, if it happens, I have to marry another wife. Oh, you have to let yourself know that this is the next thing that befalls you. So you on time, you know what this person's priorities are. I've seen people who are married, and when they are married and they give birth to children, what is most important to them is the children, not the person they are married to. So they married basically for children. So the children are their end result, their expected result. The spouse is just a means to an end. And honestly, believe me, you cannot afford to be married to somebody who sees you as a means to their end game, who sees you as a route, a channel to their desires. Alright? So no, don't get me mistaken. Having children in marriage is excellent. It is a dream. It is the desire of every couple who wants to get married. But the question is this: there should be love for each other first and foremost, and then whatever comes in the issue of childbearing, both of you now deal with it together, hand in hand. So it's important that you ask very, 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 very pertinent questions. Don't do the mistake of asking the wrong question, because when you ask the wrong questions, you end up getting the wrong answer. So ask the right questions. There are several ways, because a lot of people, when you go out on your dates on your date meetings, and then you hang out, you drink out, you stroll out, please do the right things. A lot of people focus so much on just exploring themselves sexually, and they forget what is truly important. See, you notice I do not talk about sexual compatibility, because the sexual compatibility is a portion of the compatibility that you have to trust God for. It is not a portion, a part of compatibility that you need to figure out for yourself. So it's important that we know what kind of compatibility to observe and find out, and what kind of compatibility to trust God for. Because somebody might say, oh, no, you can't talk about all the other compatibilities and forget this one, because what if he's not good in bed? What if she's not good in bed? What then happens? Am I going to spend the rest of my life miserable? See, sexual compatibility is something that a couple can learn even after marriage. It's something that they can work on even after marriage. But you trying to start sleeping, but both of you trying to start sleeping with each other in order to work out your sexual compatibility, and then what happens if you find out that he is good in bed or she is good in bed, and then something happens along the line? Maybe a terrible accident, maybe maybe a terrible accident, or maybe a debilitating. That English is long. Maybe it's another English. Maybe a terrible accident or a very life-threatening disease happens to that person. How then can that person be good in bed with that life-threatening disease and that terrible accident? Something goes wrong along the way, and then it doesn't happen anymore. So there are things to trust God for, because you know that trying to explore your sexuality will eventually lead you to sin, and you don't want to sin against God. You don't want to be on the wrong side of God, especially when you are going into a relationship, so that at least you can sit back and say, oh God, we did all we're supposed to do, and we trust you for help. So that you won't be the one to have destroyed the foundation, and then after destroying the foundation, there is a lot of trouble. The Bible says that if the foundation be destroyed, what can the righteous do? If the foundation is already destroyed, you can't do nothing. You can't do anything, because the foundation has been destroyed. But make sure the foundation of the marriage is already okay. And then on that platform, you can now build, ask your questions, and fix the things that need to be fixed. So it's important that you ask. It's important that you ask the very, very necessary questions. There are so many questions that you need to ask. You can ask things like, how about your medical history? There are people that have epilepsy generationally. There are people that have madness generationally. And if you don't ask questions, how will the answers ever come? So it's important that you ask questions. There are so many questions inside this book. And if you're able to get the book, then you'll be able to have access to all of those questions. Ask questions like, do we have a joint account, or do we maintain our individual account? See, moneyfication in marriage is a serious matter. Money problems in marriage has been one of the main causes of conflict and separation and divorces in marriage. So please ask pertinent questions. If there's an agreement for a joint account, please, the rules for the joint account should be clearly stated. I know of a couple that have a joint account, but one cannot withdraw without the other. What then is the essence of the joint account? If there is a joint account, then let there be clear standards on how the money is being withdrawn and how the money is being used. A particular couple I know, they got into trouble, they started having issues with themselves, and because one had the authority to withdraw all the money, the woman, and the man did not have the authority to withdraw the money without asking his wife, eventually one got angry and she went and withdrew all of the money. And because she didn't need to ask the husband, nobody betted any eyelid. So they left her and she went there, withdrew all the money, and the man was just looking at the phone and he was just getting debit alert till the money finished. You see, so it's important that you have agreement. Be in agreement. Two cannot work together except they be agreed. Alright, so there are several questions. Find out what the hobby is. Find out if they had nicknames as teenagers. Find out different things. I won't tell you about Papa's own, but he has a particular nickname that's very interesting and funny. Maybe one of these days you get to hear about it, but for now, no, I'm keeping it to myself. Alright, so find out what their ideal spouse looks like, so that you know that you'll be sure that you fit into their spec, so that the person does not get married to you today and then tomorrow the person is now thinking of other people that fit into his or her spec. Find out what their ambitions are, so that you don't end up crushing another person's ambition. I've always said it. Please, on time, don't even bother marrying an actress. Look for some other person who fits into your spec, who looks like who you want, who looks like who you want to marry, and marry the person and leave the actress alone. It is a form of wickedness for you to marry somebody who is already an actress and then you make the person a non-actress. Meanwhile, the acting career might be the person's passion, might be the person's vision and purpose in life. And then what you'll be doing is that you're stopping the person from living his or her life to the fullest. Alright, so please make sure that you find out what their ambitions are, what their dreams are, how disappointed they have felt. Anyone who drinks will certainly come under an influence, meaning that this person is no longer in control of what he is doing, of what she is doing. So please ask them, when you feel hot, when you feel disappointed, what do you do? And when the person is talking, please watch out for body language. You will know when the person is lying or saying the truth. Watch out for the way they roll their eyes. Watch out for the way they begin to scratch their head when the other is really scratching them. So please, these are the little things that help you to know if this person is actually saying the truth or not. Watch out for the tone of voice. When somebody is trying to cover up, they usually raise their voice. If somebody are conversing with and then communication is going smoothly and all of a sudden the person begins to raise their voice unnecessarily, that tells you that the person is about to trying to cover up for something. And these are things that you get by observing, not things that you get by allowing butterflies everywhere in your stomach, and then you're feeling jilly and then whatever it is. So it's important that you find out for yourself. Know these questions and know how to ask them. Ask them about their spiritual background. Ask them about their neighborhood, the kind of places where they live. Ask them about their views on money. Ask them about their sexual experiences in the past. Please, there are several questions I may not be able to go through in the course of making this video. But I'd like you to ask all of these pertinent questions. There are questions that will help you. There are questions that will settle you. Ask them if they have a criminal record. Okay? Some can even hide their past criminal records. Find out for yourself. And as you ask questions, watch them in the eye and see whether they are answering diligently or whether they are shying away from the question or covering up for the question. And most especially, ask mentors. Alright? Have mentors, have guidance, meet a counselor. People feel that, oh, it's only when I have a marriage problem that I get to meet a counselor. No. Meet a counselor even when you don't have a marriage problem. That will help you to avoid having a marriage problem. Meet a counselor before you marry. Not when you marry and then there's problem. You want one counselor that can just come up as a fairy godmother and fix all the mess in your marriage. It doesn't work like that. There is no one person that can wave a magic wand and then everything in your marriage gets fixed. So it's important that you begin to solve those problems and begin to fix them before the problems themselves begin to surface. So those are the few things I wanted to share with you today on Checkpoint. And the topic again today that we shared on is how to know who you will marriage. We took a lot from this book, How to Attract the One You Want. It's my book I wrote sometime in 2009, and I believe it is still a blessing, relevant truths, very current revelations that will help you to choose right in marriage. I believe you have a few questions. I believe you have a few comments. Please do well to place your comments in the comment section, and let's go through your comments. Let's go through your questions, and then by the grace of God, we'll give you answers that are relevant to what you want to know. Alright? So thank you so much for listening. Thank you so much for watching, and we do hope that you keep checking out our videos at Checkpoint. Go through our videos, comment, like, share them, and then save some of the videos so that you can watch them whenever you feel like. Thank you so much for everything, and because of you, the message that we have is going farther and faster, and for that we are truly grateful. Until we see again, keep creating positive indelible mark in the lives of people and on the sands of time. Cheers.